Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've had a complicated relationship with my mother for as long as I can remember. She's the type of person who will drop everything to help you move houses or drive you to the hospital at 3 in the morning. But when things are supposed to be simple, when life is just ticking along normally, she finds a way to create chaos. It's like she can't help herself. The worst part is her obsession with being early to everything, not just 5 or 10 minutes early like a normal person. I'm talking showing up hours before events start and then acting like everyone else is the problem for not matching her ridiculous timeline. My brother and I have learned to deal with it over the years. We've developed strategies, worked around it, tried to manage expectations. But every once in a while, she pulls something that catches us completely off guard. Today was supposed to be my birthday lunch. Nothing fancy or complicated. I'd booked a table at a nice restaurant for 1 in the afternoon. Just family. My mother, my brother, his partner, and their 2 kids. The plan was simple. Show up, eat some food, maybe have some cake, spend time together. Easy. I should have known better. I arrived at 1:45, which I thought was perfectly reasonable, maybe even a little early. The restaurant hostess had this look on her face when I gave my name, this mix of sympathy and barely concealed amusement. She told me my party was already seated and led me to the table. The moment I saw my mother's face, I knew I was in trouble. She was sitting at the table with her arms crossed, face bright red, radiating fury. My brother and his family looked uncomfortable, like they'd been enduring a storm for a while now. I barely got my coat off before she started yelling at me. She wanted to know if I had any idea how long she'd been sitting there waiting. I told her I was 15 minutes early and the reservation was for 1 o'clock. She said she'd been there since 11 in the morning, nearly 2 hours of waiting because I couldn't be bothered to show up on time. According to her, I looked at my brother. He gave me this helpless shrug. His partner was focused very intently on cutting up food for the younger kid. I asked why she would get there at 11 for a 1 o'clock reservation. She said that's what responsible people do, that they don't keep their families waiting. She kept going on and on about how disrespectful I was, how I never considered anyone else's time, how she'd raised me better than this. The other diners were starting to stare. My niece, who's 6, looked like she might cry. I tried to stay calm, I really did. I took deep breaths, reminded myself it was my birthday, that I deserved to enjoy this day. When 15 solid minutes of being yelled at for having the audacity to arrive early to my own birthday lunch passed, something in me snapped. I told her that if this was how she was going to act, she should just leave. I said this was supposed to be my birthday, and I wanted to actually enjoy it, not spend it being yelled at for something that isn't even a problem. I expected her to storm out. Part of me hoped she would. Instead, she leaned back in her chair with this smug expression. She said she wasn't going anywhere, that I should leave if I couldn't appreciate my family. I asked her what she meant. She explained that this was never about me anyway. It was about her getting to spend time with her grandchildren. If I wanted to be selfish and ruin that, then I could go. I just stared at her. My brother looked mortified. His partner had her hand over her mouth. The audacity of it hit me all at once. She shows up 2 hours early to my birthday lunch, screams at me for being punctual, then tells me my own birthday celebration isn't about me. But then something occurred to me. A delicious, petty, absolutely perfect solution. I agreed with her. I said she was absolutely right. This should be about spending time with the kids. My mother looked confused for a second, but then satisfied, like she'd wanna. What she didn't realize was that I just decided to take her at her word. I moved my chair right between my niece and nephew, started asking them about school, about their favorite games, about everything. My niece wanted to tell me about her dance recital, so I listened to every single detail. My nephew had just learned about dinosaurs, so we talked about every species he could name. When my mother tried to join the conversation, I didn't give her room. I kept the kids engaged with me. We played word games. I helped my nephew color on his activity sheet. My niece showed me how to make a paper crane, and I acted like it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. Every time my mother tried to get their attention, I had a new question ready, a new game, a new story. My mother asked if I didn't think the kids wanted to talk to their grandmother. I told her I was just doing what she said, making this about spending time with them. I asked if that wasn't what she wanted. My brother caught on to what I was doing. I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. His partner was trying not to laugh. For the next hour and a half, I had the best time. My niece and nephew are genuinely hilarious and sweet. We laughed. We made up silly songs. I didn't think about my mother sitting at the end of the table, arms crossed again, unable to participate because I created an impenetrable wall of uncle nibbling bonding. When dessert came, my nephew insisted on sitting in my lap while we shared a piece of chocolate cake. My niece made me a birthday card out of her napkin and crayons. My mother barely said 2 words to the kids the entire meal. When we were leaving, my brother hugged me and said it was the best birthday lunch ever. I agreed completely. My mother walked off to her car without saying goodbye. I waved cheerfully. I went home that evening with a napkin birthday card, sticky chocolate fingerprints on my shirt, and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the best revenge is giving people exactly what they ask for. I'm 19 and in my second year of college. For the first year and a half, my parents covered most of my expenses. They paid about 3/4 of my tuition plus all my housing costs. In exchange, they required me to keep this tracking app on my phone at all times so they could see where I was. The app was called Life 360 and it showed my exact location whenever they wanted to check. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I accepted it as part of the deal since they were footing the bill. Everything changed over winter break. I had been studying biology, which was what my dad wanted for me. He had this vision of me going to medical school and becoming a doctor. But the more I learned about different paths in healthcare, the more I realized that wasn't what I wanted. I decided to switch my major to nursing instead. I felt like I could make a real difference helping people directly, being there with them during difficult times, providing hands-on care instead of spending years more in school, pursuing something that didn't feel right for me. When I told my dad, he completely lost it. We had this massive argument in the kitchen. He kept saying I was throwing away my future, that I was wasting my potential, that nursing was beneath what I was capable of. I tried explaining my reasoning, but he wouldn't listen. He just kept getting angrier and angrier. My mom stayed quiet during most of it, which somehow made it worse. The argument ended with him telling me that if I was going to make stupid decisions, I could fund them myself. He meant it too. Starting that spring semester, I was completely on my own financially. No tuition help, no rent money, nothing. I had to scramble to figure everything out. I ended up taking out several student loans just to cover tuition and housing. Then I got 2 part-time jobs to pay for food, gas, textbooks, and everything else. One job was working nights at a grocery store stocking shelves. The other was weekend shifts at a coffee shop. Between classes, studying, and working, I barely slept. But I was managing. I was making it work on my own. A few months into this new arrangement, I planned a road trip with some friends. We were going to drive to the next state over to visit another friend who had transferred schools. It was about a 4-hour drive. I was looking forward to it because I hadn't had any real break in months. We left Friday afternoon after my last class. About 2 hours into the drive, my phone started blowing up with texts from my mama. She was asking where I was. She wanted to know why it showed me on the highway. She was demanding to know if I was leaving the state. She told me to answer her right away. I was confused at first. Then it hit me. The tracking app. I had completely forgotten it was still on my phone. With everything that had happened, with them cutting me off financially and me being so busy with work and school, I honestly hadn't thought about it in months. I pulled up the app and just deleted it. I didn't owe them that access anymore. They weren't paying for anything. This was my life now, my phone, my decisions. That's when the calls started. First my mom, then my dad, then my mom again. I let the first few go to voicemail because I was driving and my friends were in the car. I pulled over at the rest stop and called my mom back. She immediately asked why I deleted the app. I told her I forgot it was still on there and that I was an adult now and they weren't paying for my phone or anything else anymore. She said that wasn't the point and that they needed to know where I was in case something happened to me. I explained I was fine and on a road trip with friends and would be back Sunday night. She told me my father was very upset about this. Then my dad grabbed the phone from her. He demanded I reinstall the app immediately. I refused and said I pay for everything myself now, including my phone, tuition, and housing, and that I wasn't comfortable with them tracking my location all the time. He insisted this was about my safety and that anything could happen to me. I pointed out that I was 19 years old and plenty of people my age don't have their parents tracking them constantly. He said those people's parents don't care about them the way he and my mom care about me. I shot back that if he cared about me, he wouldn't have cut me off financially for choosing my own major. There was silence for a moment. Then he said that was different and that it was about me making a responsible choice. I told him this was about me having basic privacy and that I wasn't putting the app back on. My mom took the phone back. She begged me to reconsider, saying I was really upsetting my father and upsetting her too. She said it felt like I was trying to cut them out of my life completely. I explained I wasn't cutting them out and just asking for normal boundaries. I said they could call or text me anytime, but that I didn't want to be tracked. She then told me that if I didn't put the app back on, my father said I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving this year. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I asked if she was serious. She said he was very serious and that they both thought this was important. I asked if they were really going to ban me from Thanksgiving because I wouldn't let them track my every movement even though they don't pay for anything in my life anymore. She said they were my parents and would always have a right to know where I am. I told her no, they don't, and that's not how this works. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My friends asked if I was okay, and I told them what happened. They were all shocked. One of them said her parents would never even think of tracking her like that. We continued the trip, but I felt sick the whole time. When I got back to my dorm Sunday night, I had 17 missed calls and dozens of texts, all saying the same things. That I was being selfish, that I was breaking my mother's heart, that if I loved them I would just turn the app back on, that they were only trying to protect me. I didn't respond. I still haven't put the app back on. Thanksgiving is next month, and I honestly don't know if they'll actually follow through on banning me. Part of me thinks they're bluffing. Part of me thinks my dad is stubborn enough to do it. Either way, I'm not backing down. I'm paying my own way now. That has to mean something. My dad remarried about 5 years ago after my mom passed away from cancer. At first, his new wife seemed nice enough. She was polite, cooked family dinners, and tried to get along with everyone. But over time, I started noticing little things. The way she'd make snide comments about my brother's wife when she thought no one was listening. How she complained to my dad that my brother's wife was trying to take over the family or turn my brother against her. It was subtle at first, just petty jealousy, I figured. My brother had gotten married 2 years after Dad's wedding, and his wife was genuinely kind and sweet. She never did anything to deserve the treatment she got. The tension in the family kept growing. My stepmom would exclude my brother's wife from family planning, forget to invite her to things, and make passive-aggressive remarks during gatherings. She'd call my brother's wife spoiled or ungrateful behind her back. She even started spreading rumors to extended family members that my brother's wife was manipulating my brother and trying to isolate him from the rest of us. None of it was true. My brother noticed, but he's the type who tries to keep the peace. He'd just change the subject or make excuses to leave early. My dad was completely blind to it all. Whenever my brother or I tried to bring it up, he'd defend her and say we were being too sensitive. He'd say she was just adjusting to having a bigger family and that we needed to give her time. I tried multiple times to explain what I was seeing, but he'd shut me down every time. Then came that dinner 3 months ago. My dad insisted we all have a family meal together since we hadn't gathered in a while. My brother and his wife came over around 6 p.m. and I drove in from my place across town. The whole evening felt off from the start. My stepmom was overly cheerful, which was weird given how she usually acted around my brother's wife. She'd made this elaborate spread with all my brother's wife's favorite dishes, which she'd never done before. She kept insisting everyone eat more, personally serving portions onto everyone's plates. She was being almost sickeningly sweet, complimenting my brother's wife's hair and outfit. My brother kept giving me these confused looks like he couldn't figure out what was happening either. I was sitting across from my stepmom at the table when I saw her do something strange. She kept looking around nervously, then reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out this tiny glass bottle. It happened so fast. She unscrewed the cap, leaned over slightly, and let a few drops fall onto my brother's wife's plate, while everyone else was distracted passing dishes around. Then she quickly screwed the cap back on and shoved the bottle into her pocket, smoothing down her cardigan like nothing happened. My heart started racing. I didn't know what was in that bottle, but the sneaky way she did it made my stomach turn. I opened my mouth to say something, but then second-guessed myself. What if it was just some supplement or cooking ingredient? What if I caused a scene over nothing and made things even worse between everyone? I sat there frozen, watching my brother's wife take bites of her food, my mind spinning with what to do. About 10 minutes into the meal, my brother's wife suddenly dropped her fork. Her face went pale and she grabbed her stomach. She said she didn't feel well. My brother asked what was wrong. She told him her stomach hurt really bad, like burning. She started sweating and her hands were shaking. She doubled over in pain, and that's when I knew. I shot up from my chair and told everyone that my stepmom had done something to the food. Everyone turned to stare at me. My stepmom asked me what I was talking about. I told her I saw her put something from a bottle onto my brother's wife's plate and asked what it was. She said she had no idea what I was talking about and that I was being ridiculous. She said I was always trying to cause drama and turn the family against her. My brother's wife was now crying in pain, barely able to sit upright. My brother had his arm around her, looking terrified. My dad asked what was going on and why I was accusing his wife of something so serious. I explained that I saw my stepmom take a small bottle out of her pocket and put drops of something on the plate. I told my dad to ask her what was in her pocket right now. My stepmom said it was insane and that she didn't do anything. She said I was lying and trying to ruin the family dinner because I never accepted her as part of the family. My dad told her that if she didn't do anything, then she should show us her pockets. She refused, saying she wasn't going to be treated like a criminal in her own home. She said it was disrespectful and hurtful that my dad would even entertain my accusations. She stood up and started walking toward the front door quickly. My brother's wife was groaning in agony now, clutching her stomach and starting to gag. I wasn't about to let my stepmom walk out. I jumped up and blocked the doorway. She tried to push past me and told me to move out of her way. I said she needed to show us what was in her pocket first. My brother came over, his face twisted with anger and fear. He grabbed her arm and told her that if his wife was dying, she better tell us what she gave her right now. My stepmom yelled at him to get his hands off her and that we were all ganging up on her. My brother reached into her cardigan pocket and she tried to pull away, but he held firm. He pulled out the small glass bottle. He held it up to the light and his face went white. The label was partially torn off, but you could still make out the words "rat poison" in red letters. My brother asked her if she was insane. He showed it to my dad. My dad just stared at the bottle in complete shock, like he couldn't process what he was seeing. I immediately grabbed my phone and called 911. I told them we needed an ambulance and police because someone had been poisoned. My stepmom started crying, saying it was a mistake, that she just wanted to make my brother's wife sick, not kill her. She said my brother's wife was ruining the family and turning everyone against her. She said she deserved to be taught a lesson. My dad told her to sit down and not move. His voice was shaking. We kept her in the living room while we waited. My brother was on the phone with the emergency operator, holding his wife, who was crying and vomiting now. The operator was giving him instructions on what to do until the paramedics arrived. The paramedics got there in about 12 minutes and rushed my brother's wife to the hospital. They asked us what she ingested, and my brother showed them the bottle. They said they needed to pump her stomach immediately. The police came minutes later. I told them exactly what I saw, step by step. My brother told them about the years of harassment his wife had dealt with from my stepmom. My dad just sat there in shock, saying he had no idea things had gotten this bad. The police took the bottle as evidence and arrested my stepmom on the spot. She kept screaming that I was lying, that I misunderstood, that she loved this family. She said we were all betraying her and that my dad would regret this. My brother's wife spent 4 days in the hospital. The doctors said if she'd eaten much more or if we'd waited longer to get help, she might not have made it. They had to monitor her liver and kidney function for 2 days straight. The thought makes me sick. The trial took 7 months. I testified about what I saw that night in complete detail. My brother testified about the years of harassment and threats his wife endured. He brought up incidents I didn't even know about, times when my stepmom had threatened his wife directly when no one else was around. He talked about how my stepmom had told his wife she'd make her life miserable until she left the family. The prosecution had the bottle with my stepmom's fingerprints on it, the medical records showing rat poison in my brother's wife's system, and all our testimonies. My stepmom's lawyer tried to argue it was a moment of temporary insanity, that she'd been under stress. But the prosecution showed it was premeditated because she'd bought the poison 2 weeks before the dinner. They found the receipt in her car and security footage of her purchasing it at a hardware store. My stepmom was found guilty of attempted murder and assault. She got 15 years in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 10 years. My dad filed for divorce immediately after the verdict. He apologized to my brother and his wife over and over, saying he should have listened, should have seen the signs. He said he'd been so lonely after my mom died that he ignored all the red flags. He paid all of my brother's wife's medical bills, which came to over $30,000. I still think about that night constantly. What if I'd spoken up the second I saw her do it? What if I'd trusted my gut instead of doubting myself? But I also know that if I hadn't been paying attention at all, if I hadn't seen what she did, my brother's wife might be dead right now. The building I live in had assigned basement spots for each unit, and mine was clearly marked with my apartment number. This guy from one of the upper floors decided my spot was his personal overflow parking. The first time I came home from work and found his silver sedan sitting there, I figured it was an honest mistake. I left a polite note on his windshield explaining it was my assigned spot. The next week, same car, same spot. I managed to track him down through the building manager and had a word with him in the lobby. I told him that was my parking spot he kept using, the one with my apartment number painted on it. He said sorry about that and that he'd move it quickly next time. I said there shouldn't be a next time since he had his own spot. He just laughed and walked off. But there was a next time and another after that, every single time I confronted him. Same response, that stupid laugh and the promise he'd move it quickly. Except quickly never came. I'd have to park on the street, pay for parking, or circle the block for 20 minutes looking for a spot while my assigned space sat occupied by his car. I complained to the building manager twice. She sent him warnings. He ignored them. I started taking photos, documenting dates and times. Nothing changed. This guy clearly thought the rules didn't apply to him, and my frustration was building with each passing week. Then came Melbourne Cup weekend. The long weekend. I'd been out visiting my sister in the suburbs and headed home around 7 in the evening. I pulled into the basement, and there it was again. His silver sedan parked right in my spot, like he owned the place. Something snapped. I'd had enough of this behavior. I'd asked nicely. I'd gone through proper channels. I'd given him every opportunity to do the right thing. So I did exactly what he'd been doing to me for months. I took what wasn't mine. I pulled my car directly in front of his, blocking him in completely. My front bumper was maybe 30 centimeters from his. There was no way he was getting out without me moving first. I went upstairs, made myself dinner, and settled in to watch a movie. About 2 hours later, there was aggressive knocking at my door. I already knew who it was. I opened the door to find him standing there. He told me I needed to move my car right now. I said there was a bit of a problem with that. He asked what problem and told me to just move my damn car. I explained that I couldn't find my keys and that I've been searching everywhere for the past hour, checked all my pockets and looked through the whole apartment, but they just vanished. He said that wasn't his problem and to move my car. I told him I literally couldn't since I had no keys. He said to call a locksmith then. I said I did, and they told me it would be double the charge because of the public holiday, around $500 or something ridiculous like that. He asked what he was supposed to do. I shrugged. I told him he'd have to wait a couple days and that Tuesday I could get someone out for a normal rate, but if he was happy to pay the $500 himself right now, he could be my guest. He said this was ridiculous and that he had places to be. I said I knew the feeling since I've been dealing with that myself for months now, every time he parked in my spot. He said he'd call the police. I shrugged again. I told him to go ahead since he was the one parked illegally in my assigned spot while I was parked in a visitor area, and that he could call the police, the building manager, the prime minister for all I care because I still didn't have my keys. He stood there sputtering, trying to find something to say that would change the situation. There was nothing. He'd trapped himself, literally and figuratively. He said this was illegal and that I couldn't just block him in. I said it was funny how parking rules suddenly mattered to him now. He pulled out his phone, presumably to call the police. I just closed my door and went back to my movie. I never heard sirens, so I'm guessing he realized how that conversation would go. Officer, I parked in someone else's assigned spot and now I'm blocked in wasn't exactly a winning complaint. The rest of the long weekend was blissfully quiet. I saw him once in the lobby on Sunday, and he refused to make eye contact, just rushed past me toward the stairs. Morning rolled around. I'd taken the day off work just to make sure I was home when he came knocking, and knock he did right at 8 in the morning. He asked if I'd found my keys yet. I told him he wasn't going to believe this, but I'd found them that morning and they were in my jacket pocket the whole time, and asked how crazy was that. I dangled my keys in front of him with the biggest smile on my face. His whole face went pale, then shifted to this deep red color. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. He said I'd done this on purpose. I asked what I'd done on purpose, lost my keys, and said that would be pretty strange. He looked like he wanted to say something, probably a lot of things, but nothing came out. He just stood there shaking with rage for a few seconds before storming off down the hallway. I could hear his footsteps echoing in the stairwell, angry and heavy. I took my time getting ready, made myself a nice breakfast, had a second cup of coffee. Around 9:30 I finally headed down to move my car. His sedan was still sitting there in my spot, but he must have been waiting somewhere because the moment I pulled out, he came racing down the stairs. He didn't say a word to me, just got in his car and peeled out of the basement so fast his tires squealed on the concrete. That was 4 months ago now. Haven't seen his car in my spot since. In fact, I barely see him at all anymore. I think he takes the stairs specifically to avoid running into me in the elevator. Every time I pull into my parking spot now, clearly marked and unoccupied, I smile thinking about those 3 days. About him stuck in the basement, unable to go anywhere, finally understanding what it felt like to have someone else's behavior completely disrupt your life. I started working at the video rental place during my sophomore year because the hours fit perfectly around my class schedule. The store wasn't anything special. We had maybe 7 people on staff total, and most shifts were pretty quiet. This was back when streaming was already killing the business, so we'd get maybe 20 customers on a good day. The job itself was easy. Check movies in, check movies out, reorganize shelves, help people find what they were looking for. I got promoted to assistant manager after about 6 months, which just meant I could open and close the store and handle the register without supervision. Now the company had this dress code policy that said no jeans allowed. You had to wear a collared shirt and proper pants. That was it. No uniform, just those 2 rules. But here's the thing. Everyone wore jeans. Every single person. The store manager wore jeans. The other assistant manager wore jeans. The part-timers wore jeans. Nobody ever said anything about it because we all paired them with nice polos or button-downs. And we looked fine. I was taking a full course load that semester, so most days I'd go straight from campus to work. On this particular day I had classes from 9:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Then I was scheduled to work from 4 until midnight. I wore jeans and a button-down shirt to school so I could just drive straight to the store afterward without having to go home first. I got to work right at 4, punched in, and started my shift. That's when I saw our district manager standing near the counter. He almost never visited our location, so seeing him there was already unusual. I figured he was just doing some random inspection or checking sales numbers or something. About 30 minutes into my shift, he walked up to me while I was restocking the new release section. He pulled me aside and told me we needed to talk. When I asked what was going on, he pointed at my jeans and said I was violating the dress code. I explained that I had classes all day and came straight from campus, so mentioned that everyone wore jeans here and nobody had ever said anything about it before. He didn't care. He told me that if I wanted to finish my shift, I needed to go home and change my pants right now. I pointed out that my apartment was at least 15 minutes away, which meant the round trip would take almost an hour. I reminded him that I was the only person scheduled from 6 until closing and asked who was going to run the store while I was gone. He said he would handle it himself and repeated that I needed to go change. I tried one more time to explain how ridiculous this was, mentioning that I'd worked there for over a year and nobody had ever complained about jeans before. He cut me off and made it clear that the policy was no jeans, and I either needed to go home and change or go home for the rest of the night. I could tell he wasn't going to budge. This was some kind of power move for him, and he wanted to make sure I knew he was in charge. So I grabbed my keys and left. The whole drive home I was furious. This guy was making me waste an hour of my shift over something that literally nobody else cared about. He was forcing me to drive back and forth just to prove a point. By the time I got to my apartment, I was so angry that I decided to make my own point right back at him. I walked into my bedroom and pulled out my nicest suit. It was a 3-piece blue suit that I'd bought for job interviews and formal events. I put on a crisp white shirt with French cuffs and dug through my drawer until I found the fancy cufflinks my grandfather had left me. I put on a striped yellow tie and made sure the knot was perfect. I splashed on cologne, strapped on my biggest watch, and laced up my clickiest dress shoes. When I looked in the mirror, I looked like I was about to walk into a wedding or a high-powered business meeting. I looked ridiculous for a video rental store. I drove back to work and walked through the door like I owned the place. My dress shoes clicked loudly on the tile floor with every step. The district manager looked up when he heard me coming. His eyes went wide when he saw what I was wearing, and I swear I saw him either try to hold back a laugh or maybe roll his eyes. But he didn't say a single word to me. I walked behind the counter and got back to work. For the next 2 hours while he was still there watching me, he stayed completely silent. Right before he left, he walked past me and thanked me. That was it. No comment about the suit. No acknowledgement of what had just happened. Nothing. After he left, the regulars started coming in for their evening rentals. I knew most of them by face since I worked so many closing shifts. The first regular asked me why I was so dressed up. I told him that I took this job seriously, and if you want to rent movies in a respectful way, you've got to look the part. Another regular commented that I looked really nice and asked if I had somewhere to go after work. I said nope, just working my regular shift. A third regular wondered if someone got promoted or if there was some special event happening. I told her I was just doing my job the right way. Every single person who came in that night commented on how I looked. I kept giving them the same answer about taking the job seriously. Some of them laughed. Some of them looked confused. But all of them remembered it. I wore that suit for the entire 8-hour shift. By the end of the night, my feet hurt from the dress shoes, and the tie felt like it was choking me. But it was worth it. The district manager and I never spoke again after that day. Not one word. A few months later, he got transferred to a different district, and I never saw him again. I still wore jeans to work after that. So did everyone else, and nobody ever said anything about it again. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.